Watch this.
Idaho has 25% more people than it did 15 years ago, yet most of our infrastructure is much older than that and in need of repair. We're going to take a look at a new report showing where our literal cracks are showing. Idaho's water law is pretty simple. First come, first served. But when that water ran a little low this summer, one farmer ignored the rules and the state took him to court. From black and white to color, from analog to digital, KTVB has weathered all kinds of changes in television transmission. Well, we're about to go through another generational shift and explain why it matters. Average, but better than below average, which is where we were. That's according to a bunch of civil engineers who put together a report on Idaho's infrastructure. That's the physical world built around us, like roads, bridges, schools, plumbing, those kinds of things. And some of those things have stood around for a century. Some, they're a bit newer, but this report is put together every 6 years or so. And what we've learned, we haven't improved much over the last couple of decades. Joe Paris takes us through the key findings and the common thread facing Idaho's infrastructure.
The grade is in, a C for Idaho's overall infrastructure. The American Society of Civil Engineers published a comprehensive report on 9 different areas of infrastructure. A top grade of C+ in the energy sector, a low grade of D+ for school infrastructure. The overall takeaway, Idaho scored as mediocre across crucial systems. The Southern Idaho section of the American Society of Civil Engineers has a clear takeaway for state leaders and stakeholders. Key infrastructure systems are generally safe and functional today, but increasingly strained by age, growth, and funding gaps. Here's a look at the report card. It lobs the question about future sustainability and even possible dangers if changes aren't made. Idaho scored lowest in schools, aviation, bridges, and transit. Idaho's schools face challenges, overcrowding, outdated buildings, and inadequate maintenance, factors that can hinder student success. The report identifies, while some districts have used local levies to fund new construction, many schools remain outdated or in disrepair, especially in fast-growing areas. Since 2016, Idaho has lost 40 public schools, even as enrollment is projected to rise by 5% or more through 2028. Physical infrastructure is often left out of statewide education funding discussions. The consequences, overcrowding, deferred maintenance, and facilities that fall short of safety, technology, and accessibility standards. Again, Idaho scored a D+, but that actually is the overall national grade on the topic. Growth is a major factor in the overall Idaho discussion. Simply put, systems were not built with this type of population in mind. Idaho's population has grown nearly 25% since 2010, one of the fastest rates in our country, and the surge is straining legacy systems. More than 1,500 bridges still require repairs, half of school square footage is in fair or poor condition, and most small water and wastewater systems face significant renewal backlogs. Road fatalities surged to a 20-year high in 2023, while 65 wastewater plants reported Clean Water Act violations. Many smaller and rural communities with limited tax bases struggle to keep up with maintenance needed and, regulatory requirements. Funding is the root of the problem for many of these issues, according to the report. Recent federal programs like the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act and the state effort like Leading Idaho and the Transportation Expansion and Congestion Mitigation TECM Fund, they have supported critical projects, but the report says these are often one-time boosts rather than sustained funding, something that needs to be addressed. Idaho's heavy reliance on local ratepayers, bonds, and competitive grants without broad, dedicated state support means that maintenance is deferred and progress is uneven across communities. Another factor, state law limits options for local tax increases, which makes it even more challenging to solve some of these funding questions. For example, Idaho airports face a $650 million capital shortfall projected over the next 6 years, and the backlog for bridges, it exceeds $2 billion in cost. School operation and maintenance spending sits at less than 60% of the national average per student. The seemingly positive, a C+ for energy, drinking water, and wastewater, thanks to recent investments and improvements in clean energy, water quality compliance, and system upgrades. Idaho's grade overall is slightly up from the previous report in 2018, from a C- to now a C. And you will notice, though, on that report that a very crucial school infrastructure went from a C- to a D+. Another major question is, what will leaders do with this information, Brian? It's not like these concepts have never been talked about at places like the Idaho State House, but to reiterate, a common thread, according to the report, is that funding mechanisms have a lot of the times in the last decade, and really going further back, has been one-time cash infusions, one-time fix-it pays, where the local taxing districts really just don't have enough money to pay for this going forward. The recommendation from the civil engineers is create long-term funding solutions.
Did they say why we went down in energy? Because back in 2018, we had a B- for energy and wastewater. Now, nothing on that report card is in the B range, nothing.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of metrics in it, and we will link to our website. It's a very in-depth report that it's not just a survey of it, and they cite all their sources.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Well, it took a lot of negotiations and discussions before Idaho hammered out a water settlement this last summer. It's designed, was it last summer? Yeah, last summer. 2 summers ago, excuse me. It was designed to keep farms alive, reservoirs stable, and water fights out of the courtroom. The deal required groundwater users to follow mitigation plans or face curtailment, meaning shutting the water off if those supplies ran short. Well, this summer, it was a bit dry, and as Hunter Funk found out, when the state said stop, one farmer kept the water running.
After updating and finalizing the water rights settlement in 2024, it became a legal agreement between groundwater and surface water users to prevent curtailments and keep Idaho's aquifers from running dry. On August 10th, all groundwater users had to join a water district with an approved water mitigation plan to avoid having their water shut off if it was a bad water year, which is exactly what Idaho experienced this year.
Earlier this year, as part of the delivery call, the director in May issued an order curtailing groundwater rights back to 1955 because of the water supply conditions. As the water supply conditions in that part of the state got progressively worse through this irrigation season, got drier and drier, on July 25th, the director issued an order further curtailing groundwater rights with priority dates back to 1900.
The settlement plan was designed to protect people from curtailment if they joined a mitigation plan. But for farmer Jerry Bingham, near Bingham County,
Mr. Bingham actually went through the process to formally exclude himself and his water rights from the Bingham Groundwater District here a few years ago.
Which meant his water was shut off because of the lack of water. But
he continued irrigating 70 acres after that July 25th curtailment order. That order gave groundwater users until August 10th to join an approved mitigation plan. Mr. Bingham did not, and he continued irrigating.
Which is why
this is the only one that's escalated to this point, yes.
The State Department of Water Resources took Bingham to court.
Last Thursday, the court agreed to a settlement between the Department of Water Resources and Mr. Bingham that requires him to not irrigate the rest of the season, which is what the department need to enforce the curtailment orders when they occur.
The settlement doesn't end the story. Civil penalties are still possible. Bingham has even filed his own proposed mitigation plan with the state, a process that could also wind back up in court. For now, the state says the rules are clear: join a district or face curtailment. Because when water runs low, the law runs first come, first serve.
As far as filing litigation against the Binghams, that's not something the department wanted to have to do. We would prefer that folks voluntarily enter a mitigation plan, or if they choose not to, well, then they have to, adhere to the curtailment orders.
So for now, the settlement ends irrigation on those 70 acres for the rest of this season, but penalties are still possible there. With Idaho water supplies still uncertain, this likely won't be the last battle. Now, I have reached out to the Binghams to hear their response, but I'm still waiting to hear back. But a tough situation for a farmer, but again, something that we've talked about time and time again.
Yeah, 70 acres is not a small chunk of land either, when it comes to that kind of stuff.
And come July, that's peak time to really use that water before you can harvest a lot of your crops.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear his side of the story. Hopefully, hopefully he'll get back to you here the next day or so.
Yeah,
we'll see. All right, thanks, Hunter. It's been standing tall over the Treasure Valley since, well, Eisenhower was in office. But this week, our old transmitter is getting a glow up at Bogus Basin. And for those with an antenna, you're going to like the way we look. At this point, we're looking for anything from you. Change happens, I know, but let's keep the 208 conversation going. Send us a message, 208-321-5614. Make sure you include your name and the hashtag the 208. And if it's clean and it's clever, well, we might share it at the end of the show. If you've been skiing at Bogus Basin at any point in the last 65 years or so, and you've ridden the Deer Point ski lift up the hill, little glance over your right shoulder, and you've likely seen how KTVB has been infiltrating your home. It's our TV tower, our transmitter. It sends our signal from Eastern Oregon all the way to, well, close to the Magic Valley. This week, it's coming down to make way for a brand new one. It's a once-in-a-multi-generational change, but we can't appreciate where we're headed without first appreciating how we got here. The roots of television run deep in Idaho. First planted in Rigby by farm boy Philo Farnsworth in 1922, when, at the age of 16, he came up with the idea of an image dissector. Farnsworth's invention laid the foundation for the next generation of mass media.
Now takes its place as a new American art and industry.
Highlighted by RCA and NBC when they broadcast The World of Tomorrow during the 1939 World's Fair from New York.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
2 years later, the Federal Communications Commission commercialized the medium.
The program director and engineers prepare for their part in the broadcast.
Yet television wouldn't take off until after World War II. By 1945, most major U.S. cities had a TV station, and the number of homes with a television set skyrocketed, from about 44,000 in 1946 to more than 4.2 million in 1949. A rise so steep, the infrastructure wasn't yet there to support it. So the FCC pumped the brakes, putting a pause on all new TV stations in 1948 in order to figure out broadcast frequencies and such, which they did by 1952, lifting the lapse on television licenses. And Boise wasted little time. In March of that year, KTVB's founder, Georgia Davidson, filed for Idaho's very first TV station permit and a permit to build a transmitter. It was granted in December of 1952, and construction began on Crestline Drive in the Boise foothills. Oh, sure, Channel 7 could have started broadcasting sooner, but management wanted to wait for full power from the 400-foot tower, which they did, and KIDO TV hit the airwaves on July 12, 1953.
We barely, when we turned on the switch in 1953, we barely reached Payette, Idaho.
So first, just not so robust, which left an opening for competitors.
Channel 2 immediately, when we went there, they immediately modified their application to the FCC, and they moved up to the top of Bogus Basin, which we gradually had to do, to be competitive.
Within 3 years, the Bogus Basin transmitter was completed. It was only 226 feet tall, but when your starting point at Deer Point is just under 7,000 feet, KTVB's reach stretched in all directions. Using VHF, or very high frequency, KTVB's signal was line of sight, meaning it could be picked up if you could see the tower.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
A simple system that worked well for decades, until the digital revolution. In 2009, KTVB's analog signal switched to digital.
This is one of the biggest changes that the television industry has seen since the conversion from black and white to color.
It exposed a few pitfalls with VHF, like getting a clean signal inside certain buildings, which is a bit of a problem considering inside is where you find most TVs, rendering things like rabbit ears ineffective. And that's why we're making the switch to UHF, or ultra high frequency. It's an upgrade up on the hill with a transmitter that, well, transmits UHF.
Television is taking its place as another important and vital contribution to our daily lives.
So our reach,
It is a modern miracle.
will still be the same, but our quality, you'll see, will be superior.
Watch this.
And science has made a reality of the age-old dream of pictures from the sky.
By the way, Georgia Davidson sold KIDO Radio in 1959, kept the television station, though, and then changed the call letters to KTVB, which is what we are now. And I hope you understand what kind of a big deal this is. Because, well, going forward, starting tomorrow, Channel 7 is still Channel 7, but we're not going to be on Channel 7, if you know what I mean. We're going to like 42, I think, on UHF. So this is a big deal, and it's a big deal happening tomorrow. So what does a new transmitter mean for you at home? Well, if you pick up KTVB with an antenna, either rabbit ears or on one of those antennas on your roof, or you use a digital converter, after 10 a.m. tomorrow, you will need to rescan your television in order to keep seeing our best picture quality possible. If you still have the owner's manual for your TV, the instructions on how to do a rescan, well, those should be in there. Otherwise, you could probably find those instructions online. Or you could do this. Text us. The number, 321-5614. Text the word rescan to that number, and we'll send a link directly to your phone. You could also visit ktvb.com/rescan, where we've posted some basic instructions.
It is a first alert weather day for eastern Oregon and southwest Idaho. As you look at our satellite and radar picture, not hard to see why. We have storms redeveloping after our round this morning across the Owyhees, and look at all of eastern Oregon. We have some strong storms developing there. I do expect the storms will continue to fill in from south to north over the next several hours. So here's our high-res model. You can see by 9 o'clock tonight, that looks to be the best window for some strong storms to roll across the Treasure Valley. Maybe the window 8 o'clock through 11 or midnight tonight. You can see just west of McCall as well in northeast Oregon. Some heavy rain is possible. We're talking potentially wind gusts of 50 miles per hour tonight. Flash flooding a concern over burn scars in eastern Oregon and the mountains. So definitely something to keep in mind if you're out and about late tonight. Tomorrow, temperatures will drop behind the storm activity. Today will land in just the mid 70s for your Thursday, with more showers on deck tomorrow. And then we slowly start warming up and drying out a bit as we head into the weekend.
Reactions still pouring in after conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot and killed today in Utah. And the big, beautiful bill has become a big, burdensome headache for those trying to run refugee resettlement programs in Idaho. Here's Aspen Shumpert with the 411.
Charlie Kirk, the CEO and co-founder of the conservative youth organization Turning Point USA, was shot and killed at an event held at a Utah college. Kirk was hosting the event at Utah Valley University in Orem, just north of Provo. FBI Director Kash Patel says a person of interest in the shooting is now in custody. Refugees and asylum seekers in Idaho will soon lose access to some government aid. A new federal law cuts them out of several programs, starting with food SNAP benefits. The Idaho Department of Health and Welfare is still waiting for guidance from USDA, but the Idaho Office for Refugees says it's only a matter of time. The nonprofit says it's not just SNAP on the chopping block. The big, beautiful bill will also stop refugees from enrolling in Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program starting in October of 2026, as well as health care via the Affordable Care Act and Medicare the following year. Meridian City Council is putting up another roadblock for a new In-N-Out burger. It denied a conditional use permit, affirming a previous decision by planning and zoning. The burger chain wanted to take over the southeast corner of the Costco shopping center at 10 Mile and Lost Rapids Drive. Restaurant officials presented a revised plan at last night's city council meeting, and the public was allowed to weigh in. Opinions were mixed, with several speakers worried about the traffic and disruption to the surrounding neighborhoods. This would have been In-N-Out's fourth restaurant in the Treasure Valley, and second in Idaho's second largest city. That's the 411 on the 208. I'm Aspen Shumpert.
All right, I didn't realize so many of you watch Channel 7 over antenna. We got so many text messages asking for help with rescanning. I can't even count them all. This one from Brian in Boise, though. So when I watch the news in the morning on Friday, what channel will it be and what is happening with Channel 7? It's still going to be Channel 7, but it's on actually Channel 42. And your rescan, you won't even know that. Just rescan it and you'll find us. It'll be better.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.